Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Logistics Lager Lounge. Our guest today is Sam Clarke, who is a lifelong entrepreneur, industry advisor in the electrical vehicle space, and I believe a three-time World Guinness record holder. So 4 times. So I'm doing you out of one there. So please tell us a little bit about yourself, Sam, and the world records.
Oh, thanks, David, and thank you for having me on the show. Yeah, I don't know. It is 4, I think. No, I know it is 4. But yeah, so my name's Sam Clarke. I've been in around the logistics and haulage industry my whole life, but as you said, predominantly around EVs. So I founded a last mile delivery company in central London called Newt, where we first met many years ago. And I ran that for 10 years. And then subsequently now work at a CPO, a charge point operator in the infrastructure space for electric vehicles, but also doing some big things with EHGVs, and therefore haulage and logistics comes back into the fore there, really. But yeah, a colourful career, I suppose. And the Guinness World Records is a bit of fun, really. I think my hobby is also my job in a way, which is sad. But yeah, I've always wanted to try and prove the art of the possible with EVs. And so I've got a few long distance records for longest distance achieved on a single charge on a bike and a van and a car, and things like that. So I enjoy doing that too.
Are there any world records that you can talk about you're aspiring towards that are possible or very challenging that may become possible?
Yeah, I've got a few lined up actually. There's a few this year. I can't say too much, as you've already alluded to. But it involves just pushing vehicles a bit further. And one of them, I'll tell you what one of them is. I'm not going to say the name of the brand, but one of them is a big van, and it's fully laden. So what we want to try and do is prove that we can still do huge distances in EVs, even when they are at full payload and capacity. So I guess that does speak to the Lager Lounge a little bit, doesn't it? Or Logistics Lager Lounge, I should say, because that's trying to prove that it's all well and good doing this stuff on the empty vehicles, but why not do it fully laden and really push the boundaries? So that's one of the things we're looking at trying to do this summer.
Yeah, and as you know, a non-EV driver at the moment, but I do really watch, and I'm really interested in what's going on. It seems that the capacity and the quality of vehicles and battery life is continually moving forward at what seems super rapid pace. Is that fair? It seems just everything seems to be changing almost every other week. And when it looks at batteries and range, it's fast moving.
Yeah, it is very fast moving. I mean, as when I started in the logistics world in 2009, we had cargo cycles, not vans, and the vans weren't. Well, we had some vans, but they weren't. They looked like vans, but they were quadricycles. You know, and the mileage was about 14 miles. I could just about get across one side of London to the other. You know, that was the limit of the technology in 2009. You know, things have evolved so much now. You know, the last record we did was way north of 200-mile range on an electric van, and that now will be superseded by the next one. So. Yeah, the technology is evolving so very, very quickly. And the CV show, the commercial vehicle show, was on at NEC a couple of weeks ago. And I've been going to that for 15 years. And the evolution there is quite staggering. You know, it's rare to see a diesel or a petrol vehicle at that show these days, whereas it was rare to see an electric vehicle 10 years ago, or 15 years ago, perhaps. So yeah, that evolution is evident. And there's so many more entrants in the market, not just from the traditional OEMs, but you know, the Chinese are coming, you know, whether it be Chery or BYD or Verizon or whoever else is coming along with really, really competitive options now. And so, yeah, it's definitely a very, very steep trajectory into the world of logistics with EVs now, I think, as we learn from a lot of the car market as well.
Yeah, definitely. And it's interesting your sort of input into the logistics sector and what's going on. So if you were, you know, as a sort of semi-outsider looking in, what do you think are the biggest challenges in the logistics sector and what that is challenging that it's facing at the moment?
Oh, I mean, there's obvious challenges. I mean, you know, we all know about the fuel issues as a result of the conflict the war in the Far East. So obviously we've got, you know, we all suffer from that, whether we operate EVs or not, right? And the logistics sector is no doubt suffering some of the pain of that with diesel prices, I would imagine, quite severely. EVs are helping with that. There's a lot of companies I work with that have electric heavy goods vehicles on the road that are smug is the wrong word because it's not appropriate, I suppose, but certainly are benefiting from that technology, helping to alleviate some of the challenges from diesel prices. So I guess that's one immediate thing which I don't suppose is going away anytime soon. But then just what else? Tech, right? Tech enablement. I mean, it's come a long way since my day. But yeah, the advent of AI and the logistics optimization tools and all the weird and wonderful software that's changing the game. I used to do stuff with literal pins on maps and Google map lists and stuff like that to try and work out the sortation and the order and the routing of my drivers back in the day. That's all very much automated now and very predictive. So I think probably one of the biggest challenges is the fuel, but I would say one of the biggest also challenges, also one of the biggest opportunities, and that's technology and AI, isn't it?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I did a podcast last week with someone that's not been published yet, but one of the things that this individual mentioned was that if you go up and down the M1 and M40 every evening, you see many pallet network, many carriers bringing their parcels up and down, and also you've got the same issue in urban zones, London, etc. Do you think there'll be a time when some of the competitors could work together, to co-align because if we started again, that's how it would happen, and that's what government will make happen. But do you think there's any chance of that happening? Because there's got to be some massive benefits for everyone if there's some consolidation of certain routes and stopping fresh air being carried around the country.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, it makes logical sense, doesn't it? But whether or not we can do it in practice, I don't know. Consolidation and consolidation centres are something I pushed very hard for when I was running a logistics company in central London, and to a certain extent, we achieved it. We certainly were able to demonstrate the art of the possible, if nothing else. But it was always a tough sell. I remember there was one particular large logistics company that was brown, said that over my dead body, will you deliver things that are orange? You can read into that what you will. I think those two companies are now merged. But yeah, it's very much a case of protecting your own operations, I guess, and consolidation, I guess, in certain respects is anti-competitive if you're all sharing the same thing at the same time, but and then everybody wants their just differentiating status. But similarly, we can't avoid the climate challenges and as you say, driving around fresh air is madness.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Maybe we'll see some more consolidation with the big guys, and maybe there's also a proliferation of the small people, the niches like I was in, that carved their own niche with smaller, lightweight freight, cargo cycles, and the like for last mile delivery in urban areas where vehicles or large vehicles just won't be able to go in the future. So maybe it's a bit of David and Goliath. Maybe it's a bit of both, perhaps. I don't know.
Okay, no, and and it'll be really interesting to see how it develops and what forces it. Because the industry generally is high volume but low margin, isn't it? It's a high volume, low margin sector. So you don't need to get many levers going the wrong way to end up in a loss situation rather than making a profit. And with lots of aggressive disruptors trying to come into the market, particularly in the last mile space. Yeah, it's really interesting. And if there's some cooperation or consolidation, that could be beneficial to UK PLC and the rest of the world. So
yeah, I agree. If I knew what I knew now, I'm not sure whether I would set up a logistics company again. Not realizing that the single digit margins was really quite true. Whereas I was rather naively optimistic that I could better that. The reality is, that is where it's at, isn't it? And that makes things very, very difficult, particularly with a lot of new infrastructure costs and investment that's required for electric vehicles, and that's not always straightforward. Well, notwithstanding the fact there's now quite a few grants out there to help with that. I remember back in the day, again, I should stop saying that expression because it makes me sound old, but one of the things I always wanted people to be able to lobby for was the banning of the phrase free delivery, because that always used to wind me up, because it's not free, is it? Everyone, nothing in life is free, and the implication that it's free delivery means that people can sort of pick and choose or order multiple things on multiple times in the day and get multiple parcels delivered from different couriers. And it just seems madness to me that we actually allow the customer to have this perception of free delivery when it isn't. I just think everything should have its price associated to it, and then perhaps that might drive different behavioural patterns, much in the same way as it did with plastic bag taxes, back in the day when it was 5 pence when I think it first came out for a plastic bag, and all of a sudden everyone was carrying their meal deal out in their arms rather than grabbing the bag, because 5p was such a small proportion of the total cost of what they were buying, but it was enough. It was enough to stop them doing it, And so I'd love to see those sort of drivers in the marketplace, because perhaps that might drive better behavioural patterns from the consumer end rather than just the supply chain having to do it.
Yeah, and that's where sort of legislation can help a process and help us humans to change in the right direction. But I would say, having talked about lots of things like this and on the podcast, that what we need to do is ideally have a government minister that he or she really is becomes the expert for the sector and is doing the right things for the sector. Because if you do the wrong things, it actually becomes counterproductive rather than productive, doesn't it? So you're much wiser than me on that. And over your career, because obviously I bet you many years ago when you set up your first business, and I remember being in your warehouse, and it scared the life out of me that vehicles were moving. There was no noise, and it seems a long time ago now, but it did. It's quite disturbing. But obviously, you developed yourself in a career in an ambassador for electric vehicles and what you do. So, where do you see your future? If you went forward 4 or 5 years, what do you want to be impacting in the sector?
Gosh, I don't know. I think things seem to find me, David, as I go along. But I seem to have a habit of pioneering stuff that other people haven't done before, whether that be world records or last mile logistics with a full electric fleet like I did before that you mentioned, or the stuff I'm doing now, which is around EHGV. So I was lucky enough to be the instigator of quite a substantial Innovate UK project a couple of years ago, called ZHID, which Innovate UK funded project, which stands for Zero Emission Heavy Goods and Infrastructure Demonstrator. And I was able to raise the second largest fund in Innovate UK history at 62.7 million for one project, which is a lot. And that enabled us to put 163 EHGVs on the road over the last 2 years, and build infrastructure for depots and for the public domain. And that's a pretty rewarding thing to do. It's been hard work, but it's great to be able to be the catalyst for change in an industry. And that's quite bold words, isn't it? But I know statistically last year my project produced 25% of all EHGV registrations according to SMMT. And that sort of stuff really excites me, because I know that I'm making a difference, and it may be only 1% of all HGVs on the UK roads. Only 1% of them are electric. So my 25% of 1% is negligible, really, but it's the start, and that's the sort of stuff that I love to see happen. And if I can find other things like that I'm able to help instigate, and then let the rest of the market take it forward thereafter, then that's quite rewarding. So that's not really a straight answer, David. I don't know. No one knows what the future holds, but I'm definitely inspired by opportunities to pioneer things that will have a material difference in the long term. I love innovation, but I don't like innovation for innovation's sake. If it doesn't make real world commercial viability, then I can't buy into it. But if I think it's something that can really make a difference, then I just love that, even though it's hard work. I just can't help it. It's
interesting. You mentioned about getting 1% better. There's it's a mathematical fact, but if you get 1% better every day, the change is exponential. I think if you work it out over a year, it's something like 3,788% better, by getting 1% better every day. So it sounds incremental, and technically it is, but that's how change happens, isn't it? And you get the early adapters, the innovators, and the other end, the laggards that do it when they're almost forced to. But that's how markets change. So no, that's good. So whilst you could argue whether you're in the logistics sector or not, I think you very much are. I know a lot about it. If you was, because people don't generally join the logistics industry, they fall into it like I did, and perhaps you did. if you was recommended to someone that's looking to create a career in the logistics sector, what would you suggest they should do, and would you say it's more exciting than it looks from the outside?
Gosh, I think that it is more exciting than maybe it does look like from the outside. And I think the reason for that is something we touched on at the beginning of this, was around technology. It's a much more tech-enabled solution now than it used to be. And therefore, I think there's a huge amount of opportunity for a wider, diverse skill set within that said industry. And it's going to evolve over time again, isn't it? I mean, we're going to have, it's not just about AI, it's about autonomy as well, right? And potentially drones in far-reaching places. And there's so many other facets to the logistics supply chain that is coming through and will evolve over time. So I think that's quite exciting, that the opportunities within the sector is a lot more diverse than it was when I first started. And yeah, the only other thing, I suppose, one thing I wish I'd learned more when I started was learning the full end of the supply chain, even just the bit that you want to focus on, but how does it all work from cradle to grave? That's something I wish I knew better before I started. I was so transfixed on the last mile, but actually if I knew a bit more about the first mile, I would have made a lot more different decisions about the last mile, and that would have benefited my business better. So I think probably learning from the full suite of moving parts of the industry, even if you are going to focus on a small part of it, is probably quite prudent. Wish I had anyway.
Sure. No, I think that's wonderful advice for anyone considering or starting in the sector. And what could we do as the technical logistics sector to make it look more appealing?
What can we do to make it more appealing? I think probably I'm reminded of the army adverts on TV that often showcase that it's not just about soldiers, it's about all the other facets of how that works. And maybe that's one way of doing it, is that perhaps the sort of stigma of the rusty old Sprinter van and the guy that's throwing parcels over the fence is not only is that not necessarily accurate anymore, but also that's not the end of the game, is it? There's so much more to the industry. So I don't know. Maybe there's a point of government request here that helps demonstrate that there's a much broader opportunity within the sector than just the last mile or delivery driver that comes to our door. But yeah, that's all I can think of. I mean, in the EV world, one thing I'm always very cognizant of, being public speaking all over the place for decades now, is preaching to the converted. So certainly what we are guilty of sometimes in the EV world is just speaking to an audience full of people who already know what you're going to say, because they've already heard it. Where I get greatest value is going beyond my own comfort zone. I was on GB News with Nigel Farage last year, and that was a real lion's den stuff. And I think anything that markets, industries can do to go beyond their own church walls and attract people from outside might be one way of doing it, and just showcase the enjoyment factor and the stuff that you can really benefit from in these sort of sectors, and get great satisfaction out of the work you're doing, particularly as there's so much climate and sustainability associated to it now as well, right? So it opens up a whole new world of opportunity in transport, which is a big emitter. So anything we can do to solve that, and getting clever people in to help us solve that challenge, then that's great, isn't it?
Okay, well, just want to say thank you so much for your time, Sam, and your interesting views. And obviously, we'll keep looking out for your new world records when they come out. Yep.
Brilliant. Thanks, David.